What's going on, guys? So I was watching the LEC playoffs and I saw one of the most one-sided drafts I've ever seen in a competitive game. This draft was a complete stomp. So I thought I'd make a video and sort of explain why. So you can see I've got my Epic Pen here and I've written EDR at the top of the screen. What I want to use this for is to demonstrate as the draft is progressing. I'm going to be showing how much engage, disengage, and range each team is drafting. And we can sort of build it up moving down. Of course, if you see my other videos, or just partake in a lot of draft theory, you'll understand that range is really good into disengage, since these champs can't close the gap onto the range champs, but disengage is really good into engage, because engage is forced to run into disengage, which is exactly what they want. Meanwhile, engage is really good into range, because or disengage is really good into engage, right? And then engage is really good into range, because the range champs are often vulnerable. Think like Xerath, right? They're vulnerable to being engaged on, and that's generally how it goes. So let's take a look at some bans. So let's wait until we've got all of the bans. Now, blue side can often show what they're looking to B1 with their first three bans. So here they're banning Ashe. Ashe is like sort of a mix between engage and disengage. So again, it doesn't show too much. She's just a powerful pick. Zeri is kind of like a flex pick somewhere between here, but she can kind of splash into engage. And then Alistar is sort of between engage and disengage. So you're not really getting too much shown. One thing I would say is that all three of these champions fit into a disengage comp, so maybe we're showing that we want to pick something that engages on B1. As for red, we're looking to ban out what we think are the strongest B1s in the game, particularly if any are really strong into something that we might want to R1, R2. Now, I don't think these champs are good B1s. I don't think any of them are good B1s. So I don't like these bans from BDS. And this is going to be one of the only things that I end up not liking from BDS, I think, spoiler alert. But BDS are going to absolutely stomp this draft. So let's have a look at how they achieve that. So let's take a look at the B1. SK end up going for B1 Rel. So what can Rel do? Well, she can kind of peel. She has absolutely no range whatsoever. Okay. But what she does do very, very well is engage. So we've got a big splash of engage coming in, okay, on B1. And then we've got like a tiny bit of disengage because she can peel. That's sort of the scenario we're in right now, because Rel, she wants to go in, she wants to RW with the flash. And yeah, she can also kind of peel people, but not to the same degree that something like an Ali or a Braum or a Poppy, you know, these things are like the premier peel supports. She's just okay at it, but she's very, very good at engage. The problem with this is that, one, this is not a flex, this is support, okay? So there's no flexibility in role. And then two, there's very little flexibility in theme, okay? So we're saying engage and it's support. So what we can do on red now, the first thing I would look to do on red is look for a disengage support, because, you know, that's the thematic counter to this engage. And we can also just straight up direct counter by picking a champion that's good in lane into the rel. So we can get a lane counter pick and a thematic advantage. Aside from that, I'd look for some sort of flex pick that can fit nicely into a disengage comp. Think about like Zeri. Obviously Zeri's banned. Ezreal can do that. You could pick maybe Tristana, but Tristana's not as heavily sought after anymore. Let's have a look what we end up going for. Okay. So we don't actually pick up support, which I think is, you know, unnecessary. Like, we could pick up support now, but I guess they really wanted the Maokai. The good thing is both of these champions fit really nicely into a disengage comp. They also fit nicely into a range comp. And then Maokai has a little splash of engage. He's not the best at engaging. Like, his R going forwards it's okay, but it's pretty easy to avoid in a lot of cases. So we have like a little splash of engage. We have a fair bit of range. And we have a lot of disengage. And that's what we're showing right now. Maybe I should just make the pen bigger so that I can do it like this. There we go. And then here we've got big engage, a little bit of disengage. Okay, moving on. This is oh, actually, to be fair, one thing I hadn't considered in the moment, but I'm just considering now, is that this could be support Maokai. So this could be a direct answer to this. You could play Ezreal Maokai bot. However, I think there's better supports you can play, and so you shouldn't do that. But it does give you some flexibility by being a jungle support flex. which is kind of nice, actually. So thinking about that, I hadn't considered Maokai support, but now that I've considered that, I like this Maokai more than just than I did before. Okay, we respond on B2. Is it locked? Yeah, we respond with Rumble. Okay, so Rumble, very, very good in engage comps. So we're getting more engage here, okay? We're just getting even more of this. He kind of likes when people run into him with his Flame Spitter a bit, and his Harpoons have some range and he can drop his Equalizer for poke. But primarily, he wants to be played engage. He is fairly flexible, like he can slot into these comps, but he doesn't make a comp a range comp or a disengage comp. He does kind of make a comp an engage comp, like if you're going in and dropping the Equalizer on top. Rumble's very good at that. So you can see we're very heavily indexed into engage so far on blue side. The problem with that is that red have already heavily indexed into disengage with this Maokai and also somewhat with this Ezreal, right? So it's going to be very difficult for us to actually get an engage off, especially if we keep picking things on red that are disengage, right? Disengage here makes our entire life really hard. Let's see what else we go for. Okay, we go for Lucian. So for me, Lucian is fairly flexible. He can play engage, so we've got some more engage coming in. He can kite back with his ease, and he's actually quite good at that. In terms of range, he has his culling, which adds a bit, and then I would add even more if we had something like Nami, because then Lucian functions more as a poke champ. But you can see we're very, very heavily indexed into engage on the blue side here. Especially since Lucian is more prone to be forced to play his engage mode when paired with this, right? If he's paired with like a Nami, then he can play more range. If he's paired with like a Lulu or a Yumi, he can play more for disengage. But he's not. Or a Janna, right? He's not. He's paired with a Rel. Okay, now this could also be Lucian mid. We do have to consider that this is a mid 80 carry flex, but still, we're primarily indexed into engage. So all we have to do is keep picking disengage champs on red. What do we go for? Oh, the draft disappeared. We go for Rakan. I don't think Rakan is great here. Why do I not think Rakan is great here? Because I think there's better options, right? Ali would be one of them, but Ali's gone. Ali would be great. It would be a great lane answer into the Rel, but we can't get that. That's fine. We could still pick up Poppy support here. We could still pick up Braum support here. Braum can just eat the entire culling, by the way. We could pick up potentially like Taric. We could pick up Janna. All of these are pretty solid in this spot. I think my favourite would be Poppy, and after Poppy would be Braum. Just grab one of those. Alistar would be absolutely perfect, but I guess they banned Alistar for their B1 Rel, which, you know, is fair. In terms of what Rakan does, Rakan is primarily an engage champion. That's like his best mode is when he's going in. So we'll add some more engage here. He can sort of peel somewhat. He brings like heals, and he doesn't bring any range. So we're getting a fair bit more engage here, but again, a little tiny bit more disengaged. Not a massive amount though. So I'm not the biggest fan of the Rakan. We end up banning Vi. Vi fits this comp, but again, I don't think we're too worried about Vi. Oh, there's also Tahm Kench, right? We could play Tahm Kench support if there was something like Vi on the team, but there isn't. Sejuani, I think Sejuani's a good ban. Rumble Sejuani is very potent. I don't think we need to worry about Vi when we have this much disengage already. We ban Azir and Victor. Azir would be like a really nice disengage-themed mid laner here into what we're showing. So that makes sense. Victor, kind of the same, but he's more vulnerable to a lot of things than Azir is. What do we end up going for? We don't go Talon. We don't go Yone. We just want disengage. And we pick one of the best disengage champs in the entire game. And this is one of my favourite champs to draft at the moment, actually. I think Cassiopeia in this spot right here, or in these spots right here, is really, really potent. Because a lot of the time, what you end up doing, obviously you need it to be a spot where you need disengage, right? Let's talk a little bit about Cassiopeia. She's very indexed into disengage. She struggles to get into range. She has low range herself. She's basically pure disengage, the champion. But if you need to run into Cassiopeia, she can stop your dashes. She can stun you on your engage. She is very tanky. She does some of the most like the highest DPS in the game if you're in her range. It's just you have to be in her range, right? That's her weakness. Makes her perfect in a disengage comp, because if we look at what Blue are playing, Lucian can kind of outrange her, but these two champs need to go into her or they're just not doing anything. So it's really good. The other thing, the reason I like Cassiopeia so much, is that Cassiopeia, if we look at the remaining two roles, right, we've got both our solo laners, top and mid. Okay, and often that happens here as well. Because we've picked this early rumble, it doesn't happen, but often we end up with top and mid. What you can do is pick a champion like Cassiopeia, and then they don't know where it's going. Especially because in this instance, it's Cassiopeia into Rumble, which is actually one of the better lanes into Rumble. Rumble doesn't lose lane to a lot of things, but Cassiopeia really can give him a lot of issues. So I really like this Cassiopeia pick, and for me, at this point, there aren't too many things you can pick here that get you out of the draft. I don't think there are many outs. You need to try to pick up as much range as possible to outrange the Cassiopeia and the Maokai, and kind of match the range as the Ezreal. But the problem is you've already picked both of your solo lanes, or you've got to play Lucian Rel, which is, again, like not a very high range bot lane. So the outs here are very, very difficult for you on blue side. So what do we end up going for? We end up going for Kai'Sa. So let's talk about Kai'Sa. This kind of does help a little bit, right? We're now playing Kai'Sa Rel in the bot lane. Now, Kai'Sa is sort of split. She's okay. She's pretty decent at kiting back. She can do that. Okay. However, she's very, very good at following engages. So she's very happy in an engage comp. She can also play AP, and then she brings a lot of range. So we're now sort of catching up in range. But we're mostly an engage comp. Kai'Sa here, given the teammates that are around her, right, given that she's got Rel Rumble, she's looking to follow and engage. That's the mode that Kai'Sa's looking to play here. And then finally, we end up going for Nocturne. Nocturne is literally he is engaged the champion, right? He doesn't have any range. He's not very good at kiting back. His ult is just a premier engage and pick tool. So you can see just how much we've indexed into engage on the side of blue side, right? If you're looking at this comp as a whole, you're thinking, yeah, it's got a smattering of disengage, it's got a smattering of range, but overall, this is an engage comp. That's what this comp does. It goes in, it engages, and, you know, when you look at the comp, it matches the theory, right? You look at that and you go, yeah, that's an engage comp. Okay, so all we have to do now, on red side, is pick more disengage. Okay, Cassiopeia, I think we move Cassiopeia into mid. The reason we do that is that Nocturne is very, very good into immobile top laners, right? She's very vulnerable to a Nocturne gank. So I think the ideal thing to do is to move Cassiopeia out of the top lane, and we'll pick something top here that disengages. Now, we need to be able to survive the Rumble lane. So what we need is a disengage top that can survive the Rumble lane. We don't necessarily need to win it. I don't think there are many disengage tops that win Rumble in the matchup, but there's plenty that can survive it. Now, as well as surviving Rumble, if we look at our breakdown here, we've just drafted 3 magic damage champions in a row. So I really think we need physical, okay? So there's 2 champions I'm thinking of here. There's 3 disengage themed physical damage champions that I think of when I think of top lane. One is Illaoi. She doesn't bring disengage tools, but like Cassio, she's very happy when the enemy runs into her. Okay, the next is Poppy. Now, Poppy's going to actually struggle quite hard into the Rumble lane, so I wouldn't go Poppy here. However, if it wasn't for that, I would go Poppy. I think Poppy top would be exceptional in this spot. And also, imagine the flex potential we would have had if this was a Poppy, right? Like I said earlier. And then finally, there's K'Sante. I think K'Sante, his best mode is disengage. He can displace you 4 times if he wants to, so he can interrupt and engage 4 times. The way you do that is that one of them's your W, right? One of them's your Q3, okay, one of them's your R, and then the last one you R cancel into W, and you can get another knockback. Not a lot of people use this, but it's very, very good in games where you are peeling people, and I use this a lot in solo queue. When I need to peel my carries, I'll R cancel into W, because the R, when you R, it resets your W, and then you can R cancel, and this W will, instead of being the alt W, it will be the regular W again, so you get another pushback. Really, really good for peel. So yeah, minor spoilers, but I think Cassante is probably the best pick they can go for here. So as for Cassante, he brings absolutely nothing in the range department, like literally zero. He can kind of engage to some degree, but primarily he's disengaged. So what we've ended up with is a comp that is essentially a full engage comp versus a comp that is a full disengage comp, aside from Rakan. If this was Poppy, then you just have disengage, 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 disengage range, disengage. Right? So the only thing in the entire draft of BDS that I didn't like was the Rakan. Aside from that, I think they completely smurfed the whole draft. Every single lane is like at least a good, it's at least okay in matchup, right? This is going to do fine into this. This is going to be, Kai's going to struggle early, but going to do fine. This is going to struggle early, but do fine. I think that's probably the only criticism you can make. Thematically, it's very, very good. The problem is the way they've given themselves lane matchups. It's that they have Lucian into Cassio, which can struggle in the early game. Later on, it's not going to be so big of an issue. You have a very similar thing with Rumble into Cassante, right? Struggles in the early game. And then Ezreal, Rakan. Honestly, Kai'Sa's weak enough in lane that they're not really going to struggle in the early game, to be honest. But yeah, their solo lanes are kind of struggling early. But aside from that, the good thing is they have a low resource jungler, right? This guy doesn't need these people to have prio and come and play for him. He can play for them. So yeah, I really like this draft from BDS, and you know, they won the game. So yeah, good to see, and hopefully we'll see some more good drafts in Pro Play soon. Thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. See ya.